Hello friends! This week I wanted to do something a little different, something a little bit more podcasty. First, let me explain what you're looking at. This is my first commissioned piece. There will be another video later on with the whole project and explaining exactly what it is and what it's for, but as of right now I'm not done shooting it, and so I can't put that out yet. I have several videos that have already been shot, but they need to be edited. However, I've been a bit under the weather lately. So this week I decided in order to get a video out, I will let you watch me stitch this little cat friend and possibly lull you to sleep with a podcast-like voiceover that has little to nothing to do with what you're actually watching. I enjoy recording my embroidery, but there's really not much to say other than I put the needle in the fabric and then I pull it out the other end and then I just push it back through. So I have been pushing around the idea of doing more videos like this one, where I just ramble on about something while you just relax and watch me embroider. Some of the ideas to ramble about is about the books that I listen to while embroidering, maybe like a little review or a rant about the book, or maybe even some book recommendations as I stitch. I figured that I read just about anything, and so it would be a pretty big variety of different books, though I do like to read a lot of older books. I don't think all of them are considered classics because not popular, I guess. I don't know. Like, I've read Frankenstein and Dracula and stuff like that, like classics, but I don't know if North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell or things like that are really considered classics. Though, I don't know, she might be considered classic. She should be. I love Elizabeth Gaskell, and I love North and South. That's probably my most favorite book ever. And I just got done rereading it, and I just was so happy with it. That North and South is kind of like Pride and Prejudice. It was like in the 1860s or so, and it didn't have anything to do with the American Revolution. In fact, it doesn't even take place in America. It takes place in England, and it has to do with this family who the father decided that he was a preacher, minister, a head of a church, and he didn't lose his faith. He just lost his faith in his church. He didn't think that the church was doing the right things, and so he leaves the childhood home or makes them leave Elizabeth's. That's not her name. What's her name? And of course, I lent out my book. Anyway, it makes the main character leave her childhood home, and she has to go and live amongst people that she had never even really known about and find her way. Anyway, it's a really great book. It's one of my favorites. And that's something that I could just ramble on about for hours at a time. I usually, when I am embroidering, I've got an audiobook going, and I don't have a super selective way of choosing my books. A lot of the time, I've got a list of all the books referenced that Rory Gilmore read in Gilmore Girls, like all the ones that like she clearly read. And it's a big long list of like 500 books or something like that. So I just go on there sometimes and just to get some ideas of some things that I might like, or just some ideas of books in general, because sometimes I will go to get a book and I can't. With gun to my head, I couldn't tell you the title of a book, much less a book that I haven't read. So I read a bunch of different stuff, and then I also will just go on and open up my library app and just pick the first book that it recommends me and do that, or I don't. And I've done that with the list too, where I'll just run my finger down the list and just whatever it stops on, I'll go and see if my library app has that as a audiobook, and then I will listen to it. So I've read some interesting books or listened to some interesting books, and I think that'd be super fun to sit here and talk about a rant, or a lot of it's ranting because I can't say that I was roped into it because it's all my own decision to do this, but to read these books, and I get way too far into it before I'm like, oh my lord, that's not something I would have ever voluntarily picked. Most of the time I go ahead and finish the book anyway, but there's some times where it's especially boring, and that's a lot to say, that if I can't finish a book because I find it boring, because I have been listening to a 1800s cookbook that this dude is just reading, and he's literally just reading recipes, just recipes that this woman had made and put together for the common cook in the 1800s in I think it might be 1700s. I don't know, a long time ago in England. and I just sit there and listen to it and mind my own business. And so if I can sit there and listen to a cookbook being read to me, I feel like it takes quite a bit for me not to be able to finish a book. Anyway, so I think that would be super cool for me to be able to sit down and sit down and just talk to you about as you sit there and watch me embroider. Or I can do the same thing for movies or TV shows. I watch a lot of older TV shows and movies, and I pick them just about the same way that I pick a book, which I think is more acceptable to do with a movie or a TV show because you're not investing nearly as much of your time and energy into. I guess you're not really investing much energy in a book, but sometimes you are. Like, sometimes it takes an awful lot of energy just to sit there and listen or read it, and a lot of brain power to be able to wrap around what they're talking about or care what they're talking about. Anyway, so I do a lot of older movies and older TV shows. Like, lately I've been watching a lot of Westerns, and like most of the Westerns I was watching were, I think, from the 70s, but there were some older ones too. I was watching a lot of some black and white John Wayne ones and stuff like that, which I don't even know when that would be. I don't really look at the years usually, but then I have also been watching some older game shows. Just like I watched The Match Game from the 70s, and then I was also watching Password. And let me tell you, the thing that I noticed most about those, the sets of the older game shows was that shag carpet, which, yeah, it's so funny, haha, they had shag carpet and whatever, but I did not realize the dedication to that carpet that they had. That carpet was so long that there was this lady standing next to the host or whatever. It was on The Match Game. And so she was standing next to the host, and she had to turn away while the celebrity, I think it was Betty White, was giving like her answer and then or writing down, turn around, and then she had to give her answer, and she was trying to match whatever Betty White had written down on her card. And her shoes, like, you couldn't see her shoes. She was wearing heels, and you could not see her shoes because the shag carpet was so long that her shoes were completely covered by the carpet. And that is crazy to me. But anyway, so I could go on about something like that. Or I've been watching a lot of William Powell movies. Like, I watched a lot of them back to back to back yesterday because they were all on the TCM website, because I think they had just recently done a marathon of his movies, because I think his birthday's sometime here in July. But I could go on that if I did a movie or like one of those older movies or something like that, unless it's like very specific movies, I think that I have to do multiple movies. So maybe we could just pick an actor or an actress or something like that, and then I could watch a few of the movies and then sit here and chat about it. The TV shows or the game shows or something like that, I could just watch a few and get through that, because they usually are pretty packed full of stuff. And especially like the older things, like the older TV shows or the older movies and stuff, because they're so much different than today's TV shows. So we could talk about different stuff like that, because I do watch a lot of things like that. So tell me down below if you think this is a good idea, or if you have any other ideas of what I could talk about. Also tell me if you enjoy watching me embroider. I love sitting there and watching the progression of the embroidery and just like how it comes to life almost. I almost find it hypnotizing to watch. It's even more impressive when I do the thread paint, which I think I've told you guys what thread painting before is, but it's just filling in the embroidery with stitches instead of paint like I've been doing. It takes so much more time, and it's a little bit more frustrating, but it's so much more satisfying to watch the progression of it. I used to, at each stage, so like if I was doing a bumblebee, I would take a picture of just like when it's on the pattern, like the pattern drawn on the material, and then I would do the outline and I'd take a picture, and then I would thread paint the black stripes on the bee and then take a picture, and then I would do the veins in the bee's wings, take a picture. Anyway, and so then at the end I would just have this like flip book kind of thing where you could just like flip through and see the progression, and I just think that's so neat. And that's kind of what these videos can do, except for on a bigger and badder level. I always feel guilty when I embroider someone else's art. I've said this before, but I just feel so guilty about going on the internet and finding somebody's art and just embroidering it. In fact, for Christmas, I asked my brother to send me this very specific drawing that I knew that he had drawn, and he sent it to me, and then I embroidered it for him. But the whole time I just felt so guilty because I was embroidering his art without his knowledge, because it was a Christmas gift, without his permission mostly. And after I told him, like, eventually I ended up telling him before he even got it, because I just felt so guilty about it and it was eating me up. And so I called him and told him what I was doing. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's fine. That's like, I'm not upset. It's you're turning my art into your art." And that was really nice of him. And I think that's really cool that he did like that I just turned his art into different art. I took his art medium and turned it into my art medium. Anyway, and I think that's really cool that he liked it, but I think that other artists would not feel so kindly because they're not my brother. And they're not on the receiving end of that piece of art. So I am trying very hard to work on my drawing, which my drawing skills are very low. Just not anything to brag about by any stretch of the imagination. And Jenna Marbles says that she has the too much gene, and I think that I have the not enough gene when it comes to art and creativeness and stuff like that, because I always get what I want on the page, and then I'm like, okay, that's enough. Like, I don't need to add anything else. But like, it's just a picture of a bee, guys. There's nothing going on. But in reality, the bee is fantastic. It's great. It looks nice, but it needs to be more. There needs to be a field of flowers, or the bee needs to be doing something, or wearing something, or something like that. But I'm so afraid I'm going to mess it up that I don't add anything else. So it's just a bee on a tea towel. So I've been trying to work on my creativeness, my drawing, and trying to really build that up so that I can do my own art, come up with my own artwork, draw my own artwork, and then embroider it. And then nobody can say anything because I'm not stealing anything from anybody else. It's all coming out of my own noggin. Well, that being said, I am obviously influenced, but I think that comes with the territory. So what I did was I went onto Photoshop and I drew out a little bee, which that's the theme here, I guess, is bees. And I call it bee witching, like BEEWITCHING, bee witching, like a witch, because it's a little bee and it has a hat on and he has a little wand and it's shooting sparks at a flower and pollinating it. I think it's adorable, and I've already started stitching it. But I went on to Photoshop, and instead of just drawing it on a piece of paper, which would have been 1,010 times better, well, it would have probably been better looking, but it would have been 1,010 times easier to do. But I wanted some practice with Photoshop, and I thought that was the perfect time, and also like drawing digitally and stuff like that, and I thought that was the perfect time to do that. And each one of these little projects that I do, like the videos that I'm putting out, even doing like the thumbnails and stuff like that, I learn so much about these programs, but it's so frustrating to be going through a project that you have set a deadline, which the deadlines are arbitrary, but they do mean something to me because I'm setting these deadlines and I want these things out by a certain time, and I would like to stop working on them and move on to my next project. But it's frustrating because I'm having to learn all of this stuff as I go. So I thought that doing that bee was one of the perfect times to go ahead and do and just practice, because I didn't really have a deadline. I was still working on something else, and I was working on that tapestry that was my commission piece. And so working on that was relaxing almost, because I didn't have to rush and get it out, even though there's no reason for me to be rushing these out anyway. I have a hard time with tutorials because Adobe, they're really good about providing these little tutorials for you to do and to teach you how to work the programs. Well, that would be great if I had an attention span bigger than a flea, because while I'm doing these, I get about a quarter of the way through and then I'm like, yeah, okay, let me do it. But they hold your hands so tightly while you're doing the tutorials. It's just hard for me to focus, and it's hard for me to learn. And so what I end up doing is, whenever I get stuck someplace, I will pause what I'm doing, go onto YouTube, and I type in, how do you speed up a video clip on Adobe? I just go into YouTube and I type in, how do you speed up a video on Adobe Pro? And then I go through and just watch some dude do it, and then I'm good. And I go on and find the next thing that I need. How do you add a transition in Adobe Pro? I need to just save the video that I have found on how to do this, because I lose the little section of where to put the transition in there. It's just, I don't know, it just travels all over the page. So I was happy to get to go into Photoshop and get to practice and fiddle around with this bee. Right now I have him on a tea towel, but if I like it enough, I could make it in a nice little hoop and then paint it. I think it would be cute painted too, especially with like a nice light blue background with some like white clouds or something. I have big hopes of starting to make some zodiac hoops and create a nice little stock of them. And by hoops, I mean like not actual hoops. I mean embroider stuff and then that live in the hoops that they are embroidered in. My mom and I used to make soap together, and we always talked about how fun it would be to get a little stand at a fair and sell our wares. And that's what I would like to do with my zodiac hoops. I figured that they would do pretty well. Well, not so much me as my husband thought that was just the most perfect idea ever to sell at a fair would be zodiacs, because it's so universal. I would only have to come up with 12 designs and then whip those out, and then somebody would be able to find something, and they would all be just a little bit different, so nobody's would be alike, because I'm not great with consistency. And then if I can whip out some more of my little witchy characters like the bee. Now the cat that you're watching now is not my own artwork. That is me copying a sticker that I found on Redbubble. All of the characters that are in the tapestry, the thing that my commission piece, are not actually my characters. But the bee, my little bewitching guy, is all my idea. If I could come up with some other characters like that of my own design and of my own from my own head, then I would like to stock up on those, like whip those out and stock up on those too. If you have any ideas for some like themes for me to draw up and then stitch up, please leave a comment. Like my little witchy characters, or my brother was giving me an idea about like different monsters or something, and then I misunderstood what he was saying, and I was like, oh, monsters like dressed up as tea, like dressed up for like Sunday tea or like in their Sunday best, and then like drinking tea or something. So like the Loch Ness monster with like a top hat, and he's got like a little teacup and saucer with like some tea cake or something next to it or something like that. I just think that would be fantastic and adorable. So if you have any other like themes that I could just come up with some characters and then pretty easily and then just stitch, let me know below. I would love some more ideas. So I decided one day that I was going to go ahead and learn how to knit. I don't have any knitting needles or anything like that, but I decided that I wanted a Weasley sweater, and so I went on to Etsy and was looking to see like how much it would cost for a Weasley sweater, and it was out of my price range. Now, that's not me talking bad about the people, because I am sure that is priced at just what it needs to be priced at for how much work is going into it and how much yarn costs. Yarn is ridiculous. I am used to how much it costs for material and stuff like that, but I was not prepared for how much it costs for yarn. That is crazy. But anyway, so I decided that I wanted to make my own Weasley sweater, since I cannot afford to have somebody else make me a Weasley sweater. And it will probably end up working out better anyway, because I can make sure it's the right size. Kinda, because like you put an awful lot of work into knitting a sweater, and you really are just going on faith that it's going to be the right size. So I guess I'm just going to find a pattern and then just knit the biggest size and then go from there. I don't know how to knit. I don't have knitting needles. This is just some harebrained scheme that I dreamt up one day and decided I was going to go ahead and do it. I do know how to crochet. Well, like, I know the basics anyway. I could, like, if I had to, I could get away with crochet. Like, I could figure something out if I needed to crochet something. But I hate crocheting. I hate it with a passion. It hurts my wrists. I have weak wrists, and crocheting just absolutely kills me. And so I'm hoping that since it's a different technique altogether, that I'm hoping that my wrists can withstand this. But it would be super nice if I did like crocheting, because my mom likes to crochet, and if I had any questions or anything, she could help me. But she has no idea how to knit and would only be able to help me with just how to work with yarn in general because she just does crocheting. Alas, here I am. I hate crocheting and I decided that I'm going to knit a sweater. I've watched some YouTube videos. There's some random ones and I think I've gotten the gist of it. My first project is going to be my Weasley sweater, and you can't convince me to start anywhere else. I'm not doing a scarf. I'm not doing a hat. I'm not doing anything. I'm jumping in feet first and I'm doing a sweater. And I figure since it's a Weasley sweater, it's a good place to start because a Weasley sweater, it's supposed to be like kind of homely looking or like it's homemade. And I feel like this is gonna look real homemade anyway. So we might as well start with something that is supposed to be looking homemade. I have done my research, if you can call it that, and decided that I'm going to do a top-down pattern, which means that I start at the top of the collar, the top of the sweater, and then I start knitting and work my way down to the hem of the sweater. Supposedly, that's supposed to be the easiest way to knit a sweater versus knitting both sleeves or like the bottoms of the sleeves, like the cuffs, and then on up to the armpits, and then knitting the actual body of the sweater and then going in and connecting those. That's intimidating. That's not something that I would like to try to do right now, but for some reason top down isn't nearly as intimidating. And so I looked at a video and the dude said that I only needed to know 2 stitches, and that was how to knit and how to purl, and I have mastered both. I use the term mastered very loosely here, extremely loosely, but I have mastered those 2 stitches, and I am ready to rock and roll. As soon as this rain passes, because my wrists are throbbing, I am going to start on my sweater and see how far I can get. I have no idea how long it's going to take. It could take a month, it could take 2 years, I don't know. But I am super excited to get to start this project. And then whenever I am done with my sweater project, I have already decided that I am going to do a nice pair of socks. Now, Jess, why would you not start with the socks and then do the sweater? I'll tell you why. Because I am super intimidated by having to make 2 things identical. We've already talked about how consistency is not my forte, and I feel like having to make 2 socks that look, if not twins, then at least sisters, is so intimidating. And so I want to do my sweater. Yes, I am aware that a sweater has 2 arms and you want those to look like twins, not like sisters. But we'll get there. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But my big dream is to have, and this has been a dream that I've had for years now, is to have a pair of homemade socks. I don't know why that is a dream or if it is even worthy of being a dream, but that's where we are. Like, that's what I want in life. It makes me smile and almost giddy every time I think about owning a pair of homemade socks. I had asked my mom if she would crochet me a pair of socks a couple years ago, and she was like, "No, I'm not doing that." And I said, "Well, will you teach me how to crochet my own pair of socks?" And she goes, "Yes, I will absolutely teach you. If you will get a pattern, I will go ahead and I will teach you how to make your own sock." I said, "Okay, perfect." And so I found this pattern and I took it to her and we were working on it, and it was not the greatest pattern in the world, and she was having a hard time with it, and I was getting frustrated because I hate crocheting, and then we ended up just giving up on it. And then for Christmas, she got me a sock knitting loom and got me some yarn and a book that taught me how to knit my own socks. But the problem was knitting looms are the devil. That was awful. I tried and tried and tried, and I sat here for hours and hours and tried it for days and days, and eventually had to stop because I was getting so frustrated. I was really close to throwing the loom across the room, and I don't do stuff like that. So it has just been living in my closet, just on the loom ever since. And I was going to go ahead and just take it off the loom last night, and so that I could just practice with that yarn. But apparently, when you knit on the loom, it's on there forever. It's not coming off. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I have a tension problem whenever I knit, but whenever I was on that loom, that crap was tight, like having a hard time pulling the loop over the peg, getting my hook in there to pull that over because I've got it so tight. And then whenever I get knitting needles and I'm sitting there on the couch and I'm practicing these stitches, that I would be darned if it's not the same problem that I have. It's not that I can't do the stitches or anything like that. It's that I make these stupid stitches so tight that I can't get my needle in there again to make the stitches. Like, it's so bad. Like, and then I have such a hard time getting the stitches off of the needle in the first place because they are gripped on, like a death grip onto these knitting needles. So I have learned a little bit now better of how to loosen that up and get them. I mean, they were pretty consistent. They were consistently tight as I could get them. But I've learned a little bit more now how to not on the loom. We're not doing the loom anymore. We're not talking about the loom anymore because that was awful. But on my actual knitting needles, I learned a little bit better about how to control the tension. And I do like the knitting needles too because I feel like I have more control and freedom versus the stagnant ways of the loom, which I hate. I don't even know where all the parts to that loom are anymore because it got stashed in my closet for so long, and I just wouldn't even look at it whenever I'd go in there and clean my closet or get in the closet, and so it would just get shuffled around. So most of that loom is probably just scattered all over my house. But anyway, so I want to knit my own pair of socks eventually, and I will tell you what's even crazier is I want them to be wool. Yes, you heard that right. I would like a nice pair of cozy wool socks, and you cannot tell me that they will be itchy. You can tell me, I just won't listen. I have over romanticized wool to a point where I just cannot believe that wool is anything but cozy and nice and snuggly. Yes, snuggly. But I just really like wool, and I really want a pair of wool stockings eventually. And that's where the whole homemade pair of socks came in, because I want a pair of nice stockings, especially because I normally only wear skirts, and in the winter it gets quite cold for my legs. And if I had some nice wool stockings, my legs wouldn't be cold at all. They would be nice and cozy, just like a little sheep for my legs. And actually bought a pair of wool stockings from the Renaissance Fair up in Norman, or Medieval Fair, I don't know, one of them, up in Norman a couple years ago. And I got them home, and I had put the package, or taken them out of the package to look at them, and then put them on this basket. Well, that basket got taken to the laundry and promptly washed and dried. So I didn't even get to try these stockings on that I paid like $25 for before they got promptly ruined. And so now I am not paying $25 for another pair of stockings to get ruined again. I will pay $25 in yarn and then make them myself. Yeah. And that is what I want. I want a pair of nice wool stockings or socks or both after I make my Weasley sweater, and that's my goal for the rest of the year, is to make my sweater, and then before next winter, because I just have a feeling it's going to take me a long time to do this sweater. So we're going to be realistic and say by next winter, I want a pair of nice, cozy, warm wool socks. That's my goal. But for now, we are all finished with our little cat friend here, and I will see you again next time. Bye!